The worst betrayals always come from the people you love most. I learned that lesson the hard way when I discovered my sister's cancer diagnosis was nothing but an elaborate lie designed to drain my bank account and destroy my dreams. My name is Kiara, and until 6 months ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I was the responsible older sister who'd spent years working overtime at my marketing job, carefully saving for the day I could finally open my own agency. Jessica was the free spirit, charming, beautiful, and perpetually in need of rescue. I don't know how to tell you this, Jessica said that fateful day, her voice trembling as we sat in our favorite coffee shop, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her untouched latte. The doctors found something. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Cancer, she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. Stage 3. They're saying I need aggressive treatment and insurance won't cover most of it. I reached across the table and grabbed her hands. We'll figure this out, Jess. I promise. Whatever you need. That promise cost me everything. Over the next few months, I emptied my savings account, $127,000 I'd spent years accumulating. I canceled my lease, moved back home to help care for her, and put my business plans on indefinite hold. Meanwhile, Jessica's treatment schedule seemed suspiciously flexible, especially when it conflicted with her social life. I'm feeling stronger today, she'd say, miraculously recovering in time for weekend trips with her boyfriend Cooper. The new medication is really helping. Our parents hovered constantly, insisting I do more, give more. She's your sister, Mom would remind me, her voice thick with guilt. Family takes care of family. I believed them, all of them, until last Tuesday. I was dropping off Jessica's prescription, another $2,000 withdrawn from my rapidly dwindling account, when I heard her laughing through her bedroom window. I paused, key suspended midair. Cooper, babe, you should see these shoes I bought. The boutique owner practically cried when I handed over the cash. Jessica's voice was clear, energetic, nothing like the weak whisper she'd used with me earlier. Kiara's such an idiot. She actually believes I'm spending it all on medical bills. The prescription bag slipped from my numb fingers. Careful, though, Cooper replied. What if she finds out? Please, my parents have my back. They're the ones who suggested this whole thing. Dad said Ciara's always been too focused on herself, that this would teach her about family responsibility or whatever. I stumbled backward, my world tilting sideways. The manicured lawn swam before my eyes as years of memories suddenly shifted, revealing ugly truths beneath their perfect surface. The next morning, I arrived at work early, hands shaking as I logged into my computer. It took less than an hour to find the truth. No hospital records, no insurance claims, not a single piece of medical documentation to support Jessica's story. Hey, you okay? My coworker noticed me staring blankly at my screen. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I lied, closing the browser. Just tired. That evening, I sat through another family dinner, watching Jessica pick at her food and complain about her non-existent symptoms. Mom fussed over her while Dad lectured me about being more available for appointments. Actually, I said, cutting into Dad's speech about sacrifice. I was thinking of taking Jessica to that specialist you mentioned. What was the doctor's name again? Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. Oh, Dr. Richardson? Funny, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Because I called every oncologist named Richardson within 100 miles. None of them have ever heard of you. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face drained of color. Dad's jaw clenched. But it was Jessica's expression that haunted me. Not guilt, not shame, but annoyance at being caught. Kiara, Mom started, reaching for my hand. We can explain. I pulled away. Standing so abruptly, my chair toppled backward. Explain what? How you helped her steal my life savings? How you all sat here watching me destroy my life for a lie? You needed to learn about family, Dad snapped. All you ever thought about was that stupid business plan. Family? I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign to my own ears. Is that what you call this? I walked out of that house with nothing but my phone and car keys, leaving behind the people who had shattered every definition of love and trust I'd ever known. But as I drove through the darkness, something shifted inside me. The pain crystallized into purpose. They thought they'd taught me about family. Instead, they'd taught me about revenge. And I was about to become a very dedicated student. I spent that first night in a cheap motel, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and my laptop's harsh glow. Sleep wasn't an option, not when rage and determination coursed through my veins like electricity. "Think, Shara," I muttered, scrolling through Jessica's social media. Follow the money. My sister wasn't as clever as she thought. Between her Instagram posts and location tags, a pattern emerged. While I was working overtime and eating ramen to help with her treatment, she was living it up at luxury resorts and designer boutiques. A notification popped up on my phone. Another voicemail from Mom. "Honey, please come home. We need to talk about this as a family. Your father didn't mean what he said." Delete. I created a spreadsheet, methodically documenting every transfer, every withdrawal, every lie. The numbers made me sick, but it was Jessica's latest post that pushed me over the edge. A photo of her celebrating at an exclusive rooftop bar, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The caption read, "Sometimes life gives you exactly what you deserve." My hands trembled as I dialed my bank. "Hi, I need to report fraudulent activity on my account," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I have reason to believe I've been the victim of a scam." The bank representative's typing echoed through the line. "Can you provide details of the suspicious transactions?" "Every payment made to Jessica Harvey over the past 6 months. I have documentation proving these were obtained under false pretenses." "Ma'am, if this is a family matter—" "This is theft," I interrupted, "and I want to press charges." The next morning, I walked into the local police station. Officer Martinez listened patiently as I laid out my evidence: bank statements, screenshots, recordings from my phone. "This is a solid case," she said, reviewing the documents. "But are you sure you want to pursue this? Family cases can get messy." They stopped being family the moment they planned this con. I spent the next week building my case. During the day, I worked remotely, using my lunch breaks to meet with a lawyer. At night, I dug deeper into my family's deception. That's when I found something interesting. A pattern of similar schemes stretching back years. Old social media posts from distant relatives hinting at borrowed money never returned. Mysterious medical emergencies that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. My phone buzzed. Cooper. "Sarah, you need to stop this," he said, his voice urgent. "Jessica's a wreck. Your parents are worried sick." "Really? Is she too upset to go shopping? Because I saw her buying a new Gucci bag yesterday." Silence. "You knew, didn't you?" I pressed. "You knew she was faking everything." "Look, it's complicated." "No, it's really not. You're all thieves." I hung up and blocked his number, along with every family member who'd been flooding my phone with messages. But one text caught my eye, from an unknown number. "I know what your family did, and that's not the only secret they're hiding. Meet me at the Blue Door Cafe tomorrow at 2 p.m. if you want to know more. Avery. Avery." The name triggered a memory. Heated arguments between my parents, whispered conversations about someone who'd threatened the family business. Against my better judgment, I showed up at the cafe the next day. A woman about my age sat in the corner, her sharp eyes tracking me as I approached. "You must be Kiara," she said, gesturing to the empty chair. "I've been waiting for someone in your family to finally wake up." "Who are you?" "Someone who learned the hard way what the Harveys are capable of." She pulled out a thick folder. "Your sister's cancer scam? That's amateur hour compared to what your parents have been up to." I stared at the folder, my throat dry. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you're different. You're the only one who might actually do something about it." She slid the folder across the table. "The question is, how far are you willing to go for the truth?" My hands closed around the folder. "Tell me everything." Avery smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your parents destroyed my family's business through fraud and blackmail. I've spent years gathering evidence, but I could never get close enough to expose them. You, though, you're already on the inside. Was, I corrected. I'm not part of that family anymore. Even better, because what I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about them. She opened the folder, revealing documents, photos, and bank statements. Ready to learn what your college fund really paid for? I thought of Jessica's smug smile, my father's condescending lectures, my mother's enabling lies. They'd taught me about family, all right, about how quickly family can become your worst enemy. Show me, I said, leaning forward. Show me everything. 2 weeks after meeting Avery, I stood outside my parents' house, watching guests arrive for Jessica's recovery celebration. The irony was almost funny. They were throwing a party to celebrate her beating a cancer she never had. Are you ready? Avery asked through my earpiece. She was parked around the corner, monitoring everything. I adjusted my blazer, feeling the weight of the USB drive in my pocket. Ready as I'll ever be. Inside, the house was packed with family friends and business associates, all of them victims or unwitting accomplices in my parents' schemes. Jessica held court in the living room, accepting sympathy and praise with practiced grace. Ciara, Mom rushed over, her smile too bright. You came. We were so worried. Save it. I cut her off, loud enough to draw attention. I'm not here for reconciliation. Jessica's head snapped up. What are you doing? I walked to the center of the room, pulling out my phone. I'd like to make a toast, I announced, to my sister's miraculous recovery. The crowd quieted, raising their glasses. Dad's eyes narrowed suspiciously. It truly is miraculous, I continued, considering she was never sick in the first place. Gasps rippled through the room. Jessica's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. I have proof, I said, connecting my phone to the TV. Bank statements showing where my money really went. Security footage of Jessica shopping and partying during her supposed chemotherapy appointments. And this... The screen filled with a video. Jessica and Cooper at a resort laughing about their scam. Turn that off. Dad lunged for the TV, but I stepped between them. But that's not even the best part, I continued, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. While investigating this fraud, I discovered something much bigger. Dad, want to explain why you really pushed Jessica to steal my money? Was it because your own schemes were falling apart? The color drained from his face. Ciara, stop. The construction contracts, the missing pension funds, the mysterious fires at competing businesses, it's all documented right here. I held up the USB drive, including proof that my college fund didn't go to tuition. It went to pay off the families you bankrupted. Mom grabbed my arm. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I shook her off. You're con artists. You've been running schemes for years, using your reputation to steal from everyone who trusted you. And when your house of cards started falling, you decided to sacrifice my savings to keep it going. The room erupted in chaos. Business partners demanded explanations. Family friends backed away in horror. Cooper slipped out the back door, abandoning Jessica to face the music alone. Everything we did was for this family, Dad shouted, his face red with rage. No, I corrected him. Everything you did was for yourselves. And now everyone knows the truth. Jessica stumbled forward, tears streaking her makeup. Ciara, please, I can explain. Explain what? How you watched me work myself to exhaustion while you spent my money? How you laughed behind my back? They made me do it. She pointed at our parents. Dad said we needed the money, that you owed the family, and you went along with it because it was easier than getting a real job. I turned to address the stunned crowd. The police and FBI have copies of everything. They'll be contacting many of you about restitution. You'll regret this, Dad snarled, advancing toward me. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I do. I stepped back, pressing play on one final recording. Dad's voice discussing arson plans for a rival business. And so will the authorities. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Mom collapsed onto the couch while Dad's threats dissolved into desperate pleas. Jessica stood frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her. "You've destroyed this family," Mom sobbed. "No," I replied, walking toward the door. "You did that yourselves. I'm just making sure you face the consequences." Outside, red and blue lights filled the street. Avery appeared beside me as officers approached the house. "You did it," she said quietly. I watched through the window as my family's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. Dad was handcuffed, still shouting about loyalty. Mom wept into her hands. Jessica stared at me through the glass, her expression a mix of hatred and fear. "Was it worth it?" Avery asked. I thought about the years of manipulation, the stolen dreams, the countless lives my family had ruined with their schemes. "Truth is always worth it," I answered, turning away from the scene. "Even when it hurts." But as Avery and I walked away from the chaos, a nagging voice whispered that this wasn't over. My family's secrets ran deeper than even I knew, and I had a feeling I'd only scratched the surface of their deception. The aftermath of exposing my family hit harder than I expected. 3 days after the party, I sat alone in my motel room, watching news coverage of my father's arrest. The headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen: "Local business owner arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme." My phone buzzed. Another blocked number. I'd received dozens of calls from extended family members, alternating between threats and guilt trips. I let it go to voicemail. A knock at the door made me jump. "Room service," a familiar voice called. I opened the door to find Avery holding 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag. "You look terrible." "Thanks," I muttered, letting her in. "Always good to hear." "When's the last time you left this room?" I gestured at the mess of takeout containers and crumpled papers. "What's the point? Everyone in town knows who I am now. The whistleblower who destroyed her own family." Avery set the coffee down hard enough to splash. "Stop wallowing. You did the right thing." "Did I?" I clicked through another news article. "Jessica's boyfriend Cooper was found dead in his car this morning. Apparent suicide." "That's not on you." "Isn't it? He was involved in their schemes. When everything came out—" "He made his choices," Avery interrupted. "Just like your family made theirs." My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Jessica. "Hope you're happy. Cooper's blood is on your hands." I threw the phone across the room. Maybe they're right. Maybe I went too far. "Okay, that's enough." Avery grabbed my laptop and snapped it shut. "Get dressed, we're going out." "Where?" "To meet someone who can help you understand what you're really dealing with." 30 minutes later, we pulled up to a small office building on the outskirts of town. A man in his early 30s waited by the entrance, his press badge catching the afternoon sun. "Kiara, meet Luca," Avery said. "He's an investigative journalist who's been tracking your family's activities for years." Luca's handshake was firm. "I've been hoping to meet you. Come inside. There's something you need to see." His office walls were covered in photos and documents connected by red string. I recognized my father in several of them, meeting with people I'd never seen before. "Your father's fraud goes beyond local business scams," Luca explained, pulling out a thick file. "We're talking about international money laundering, connections to organized crime, even political corruption." My legs went weak. That's impossible. He was just a businessman who somehow afforded 3 houses and a private jet on a medium-sized construction company's revenue. Luca raised an eyebrow. "Cooper wasn't just your sister's boyfriend. He was a courier, moving money between accounts. His death wasn't suicide." The room spun. Avery guided me to a chair. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered. "Because you're in danger," Luca said bluntly. "Your exposure of the cancer scam pulled one thread, but the whole sweater's unraveling. There are powerful people who want to keep their connections to your father hidden." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Back off now, or what happened to Cooper will look like a mercy." Luca took the phone, examining the message. "They're scared, which means you're onto something bigger than you realize." "What am I supposed to do?" My voice cracked. I can't just pretend I don't know about this. No, Avery agreed, but you can fight back smarter. Luca nodded. I've been building a case for months, but I needed someone on the inside. Someone with access to the family's real records. I'm not on the inside anymore, I reminded them. But you know how they think. Avery pressed. You know where they'd hide things. Work with us. Help us expose everything. I stared at the wall of evidence, seeing my family's smiling photos connected to a web of crimes. The weight of truth pressed down on my shoulders, but something else rose in its place. Determination. If I help you, I said slowly, I want to learn. Teach me how to be an investigative journalist. Luca smiled. Deal. First lesson starts now. How to protect yourself while chasing a dangerous story. As they outlined security measures and investigation techniques, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from my mother. Your father says there's still time to fix this. Come home, sweetheart, before something bad happens. I showed the message to Luca and Avery. That's not an olive branch, Luca warned. That's a threat. I know, I replied, deleting the message. And now they've given me one more reason to find the truth. The sun was setting as we left Luca's office, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I felt eyes watching from somewhere in the darkness, but for the first time since the party, I wasn't afraid. They thought threats would silence me. Instead, they'd just given me a new purpose. Remember, the key to investigative journalism is patience, Luca said, adjusting my hidden camera. You can't rush this. 2 months had passed since I'd started training with him and Avery. My motel room had transformed into a makeshift newsroom, walls covered with photos and documents. I'd learned more about surveillance, research, and source protection than I ever thought possible. Your father's preliminary hearing is tomorrow, Avery reminded me, scrolling through court documents. Half his business associates will be there, including Marcus Thompson, Luca added, the real estate developer who's been laundering money through your father's construction projects. I straightened my blazer. And I'll be there as a concerned daughter, just wanting to support her family. With a camera hidden in your necklace? Avery smirked. Don't forget to get clear shots of who talks to whom. The courthouse steps were crowded the next morning. I spotted Jessica immediately, wearing designer black like a wealthy widow. Mom clutched her rosary, playing the part of the devoted wife perfectly. Ciara? A familiar voice made me turn. I didn't expect to see you here. Uncle Robert, Dad's younger brother and business partner, the one who'd always seemed uncomfortable at family gatherings. Just observing, I said carefully. He glanced around before lowering his voice. We should talk. Not here. Meet me at Murphy's Diner in an hour. I relayed the interaction to Avery through my earpiece as I watched him hurry away. Could be a trap, she warned. Or a source, Luca countered. Go, but we'll be watching. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Uncle Robert sat in a back booth, looking older than I remembered. You're investigating everything, aren't you? He asked as I sat down. Not just the cancer scam. I stayed silent, waiting. Your father. He sighed heavily. He wasn't always like this. The company was legitimate once. But then he met Thompson at a charity gala 15 years ago. What happened? Thompson offered to help expand the business. Said he had connections, investors. We didn't realize those investors were actually crime families looking to clean their money. My recorder captured every word as he detailed years of corruption. How Dad had gradually pushed him out of decision-making. How threats kept everyone quiet. Why tell me this now? Because Cooper's death wasn't the first. His hands shook as he pulled out an old photo. Remember your cousin Michael's boating accident 5 years ago? It wasn't an accident. He'd discovered some irregularities in the books. My stomach lurched. I'd attended that funeral, watched Aunt Sarah collapse with grief. I have proof, he continued, sliding a USB drive across the table. Account numbers, emails, everything. But be careful. Thompson has people everywhere. As if summoned by his words, two men in dark suits entered the diner. Uncle Robert went pale. "Back door," he whispered. "Go, now." I slipped out just as they reached our booth. Through the window, I saw them sit down across from Uncle Robert, their body language threatening despite their pleasant smiles. "Avery," I hissed into my earpiece. "We need to protect him." Already on it. Luca's calling in some favors with law enforcement. But we were too late. The next morning's headline made my blood run cold. Local business owner's brother dies in home invasion. "It wasn't your fault," Avery insisted as I paced Luca's office. "You couldn't have known. They're killing people to keep this quiet." I grabbed the nearest file, throwing it against the wall. "My own father is involved in murders, which is exactly why we need to be smarter than them," Luca said, examining the USB drive. "Your uncle gave us everything we need. Account numbers, correspondence, proof of Thompson's involvement in international trafficking." "And what happens when they realize we have it?" I demanded. "Who dies next?" "No one," Avery said firmly, "because we're going to do this right. Build an airtight case, coordinate with federal authorities, and release everything at once. No loose ends." Luca nodded. "I have contacts at major news outlets ready to run the story simultaneously. Once it breaks, Thompson and his people won't be able to silence it." I thought of Uncle Robert, of Cooper, of Cousin Michael, of all the lives destroyed by my family's greed. "Teach me," I said. "Teach me everything about building this case. I want to be the one to write the story that brings them down." "It'll be dangerous," Luca warned. "I'm already in danger. At least this way, their deaths mean something." Avery squeezed my shoulder. "Then let's get to work. Your first byline is going to be one hell of a story." We worked through the night, analyzing Uncle Robert's files. Each document revealed new horrors, new connections, new reasons to fight harder for justice. They thought killing Uncle Robert would silence the truth. Instead, they'd just given me the key to destroying their entire empire. And this time, I wouldn't stop until every secret was exposed. "Your camera's live." Avery's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Remember, just act natural." I adjusted my name tag. Sarah Miller, administrative assistant, and walked into Thompson Development's gleaming office building. 3 weeks of careful planning had landed me this temporary position, working directly under Marcus Thompson's executive secretary. "Coffee run," I announced cheerfully, collecting orders from various executives. My hidden camera captured every face, every document left carelessly on desks, every whispered conversation. "Third floor corner office," Luca reminded me. "Thompson keeps his private files there." I'd memorized the building's layout, knew the security guard schedules, understood the filing system. All I needed was an opportunity. It came during lunch when Thompson's secretary Linda grabbed her purse. "Sarah, hold down the fort. Mr. Thompson's in meetings all afternoon." "Of course," I smiled, waiting until her heels clicked out of earshot. The office door was locked, but the maintenance key I'd copied last week slid in perfectly. Inside, everything screamed power and wealth. Mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city that probably cost more than my old savings account. 5 minutes, Avery warned. "Security does rounds at 12:45. I moved quickly, photographing documents and downloading files. Most were encrypted, but Luca had taught me what to look for. Then I saw it. A familiar name on a folder labeled Harvey Construction Cleanup. "Guys," I whispered, opening the file. "There's something about Dad here." Inside were photos, surveillance shots of my father meeting with Thompson, handshakes with men I recognized from police databases, documents outlining accident arrangements, including one dated just before Uncle Robert's death. Footsteps in the hallway made me freeze. "Someone's coming," Avery hissed. "Get out." I scrambled to replace everything, but as I turned to leave, a new photo caught my eye. My breath stopped. It showed my mother, years younger, standing with Thompson. They looked intimate. The date stamp was 9 months before Jessica was born. "Well, well." Thompson's voice came from the doorway. "What do we have here?" My heart slammed against my ribs as I turned. He stood blocking the exit, his expensive suit unable to hide the predator beneath. "Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry," I stammered, channeling my inner Jessica. "I was looking for Linda's filing templates. Drop the act." He closed the door. "I know who you are, Sierra. Did you really think we wouldn't run background checks?" "Stall him," Luca urged through my earpiece. "Help's coming." Thompson moved closer, smiling like a shark. "You're clever, I'll give you that. Just like your mother was before she chose your father's money over me." The photo's implications hit harder. "You and my mother. Jessica is my daughter," he confirmed. "Your father's deal was simple. My silence about the affair in exchange for letting me use his business for certain transactions. And the murders? Were those part of the deal too?" His smile vanished. "Unfortunate necessities, like your uncle, like Cooper, like you're about to be if you don't give me that camera and every copy of the evidence you've collected." 30 seconds, Avery promised. "Keep him talking." "Why tell me this?" I asked, backing toward the windows. "Why admit everything?" "Because you're not leaving this office alive." He reached into his jacket. "Your death will break your mother's spirit completely. She'll never talk." "FBI, freeze!" The door burst open. Agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Thompson's hand jerked toward his gun, but he was too slow. "Marcus Thompson, you're under arrest," announced Agent Rivera, Luca's contact. "We have your entire confession on camera." As they led him away, he locked eyes with me. "This isn't over. Ask your mother about July 15th, 25 years ago. Ask her what really happened to your father's first wife." I stumbled out of the building into Avery's waiting car, my mind reeling. "Did you hear?" "Everything," she confirmed. "Luca's already pulling records from that date." My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Mom's having a breakdown. She says you need to stop digging. Please, Kiara, I can't lose both parents." "She already lost one," I muttered, thinking of Thompson's revelation. "She just didn't know it." "What now?" Avery asked softly. I thought of all the lies, all the deaths, all the secrets still buried. Now we find out what happened 25 years ago, and we don't stop until every truth is exposed. Even if those truths destroy what's left of your family, my family was destroyed the moment they chose lies over love. I pulled out Uncle Robert's USB drive. This is about justice now, for everyone they've hurt. As we drove away, I watched Thompson being led to a police car in handcuffs. One thread pulled, one monster caught. But I knew there were more secrets waiting in the shadows, and I was finally ready to face them all. July 15th, 25 years ago. Luca read from his computer screen. Local woman dies in apparent suicide. Catherine Mills, age 32, first wife of prominent businessman. "My father's first wife," I interrupted, "the one he never talked about." We'd been working nonstop since Thompson's arrest. 3 days of digging through old newspaper archives, police reports, and court records had revealed a pattern darker than anything I'd imagined. "Look at this," Avery called from her desk. Catherine filed domestic violence reports 3 times in the months before her death. Each one mysteriously disappeared from police records. "But I found copies," Luca added, spreading photographs across the table. "She documented everything. Bruises, threats, missing money. She was building a case." "Against Dad?" "Against all of them. Your father Thompson, even your mother." He pointed to a diary entry. "Catherine discovered their money laundering scheme when it was just starting. She was going to expose everything." My phone lit up. Mom calling again. I declined the call. "There's more," Avery said quietly. "Catherine was pregnant when she died." The room spun. "What?" 8 weeks along, according to the autopsy. A week before her death, she'd told friends she was planning to leave your father, take everything to the authorities. "And then she supposedly killed herself," I finished. "Convenient timing." Luca nodded grimly. "The detective who ruled it suicide?" Retired 2 months later with a mysteriously large bank account. My hands shook as I read Catherine's final diary entry. If anything happens to me, look closer. They think they've hidden everything, but I've left proof. In the place where it all started. The old construction office, I realized. Dad's first building project. The one he never sold. It's been abandoned for years. Avery warned. Could be dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. I grabbed my jacket. But Catherine deserves justice too. The building was a skeleton of its former self, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls. Our flashlights cast long shadows as we searched the empty offices. Look for anything unusual, Luca instructed. False walls, loose floorboards. Wait. I stopped, remembering something. Dad always said this building was his legacy, his foundation. The foundation, Avery caught on. The basement. We found the stairs behind a heavy door. The basement air was thick with dust and secrets. Our lights revealed old filing cabinets, broken furniture, and there. I pointed to a section of wall that looked slightly newer than the rest. That concrete's different. It took an hour with borrowed construction tools to break through. Behind the wall was a small cavity containing a waterproof box. She knew, I whispered, opening it. She knew they'd kill her, so she left evidence where they'd never look. Inside were photos, documents, and a letter addressed to whoever finds the truth. Catherine's neat handwriting detailed everything. The initial partnership between Dad and Thompson. Mom's affair. The gradual descent into corruption and violence. This is enough to reopen her case? Luca said, examining the evidence. Enough to. Footsteps above cut him off. Voices echoed down the stairs. Did anyone follow you? Avery hissed. Before I could answer, a familiar voice called out. Kiara? I know you're down there. Jessica? I stepped into the light. How did you find you? Mom had you followed. She emerged from the shadows, looking haunted. She told me everything after Thompson was arrested, about him being my real father, about Catherine. Did she tell you they killed her? Jessica's face crumpled. She said it was an accident, that Catherine was going to ruin everyone's lives and they just wanted to scare her, but she fell? I held up Catherine's letter. That's not what happened, is it? No, a new voice said. Mom stood at the top of the stairs, tears streaming down her face. We pushed her. Your father, Thompson, and me. We were young and scared and greedy, and she was going to take everything away. So you murdered her, I said flatly. And her unborn baby. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I held up my phone, recording everything. And now everyone else will too. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Luca's insurance policy. Please, Mom begged. We're still family. No, I replied as officers rushed down the stairs. Family doesn't murder innocent women. Family doesn't steal and lie and kill to cover their crimes. Catherine was going to be a mother, and you took that away from her. Now you get to live with the consequences. I watched them lead my mother away in handcuffs, Jessica sobbing beside me. The evidence we'd found would solve not just Catherine's murder, but dozens of other crimes connected to my father and Thompson's organization. You did it, Avery said softly. It's over. But as I held Catherine's final letter, I knew it wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a much bigger story, one I would make sure the whole world heard. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentences. My father sat stone-faced in his orange jumpsuit, while Mom dabbed at her eyes with a designer handkerchief. Thompson stared straight ahead, his empire crumbling around him. In all my years on the bench, Judge Martinez began, I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty and corruption. The murder of Catherine Mills alone warrants the maximum sentence. Combined with the financial crimes, murders, and organized criminal activities, I have no choice but to ensure you never see freedom again. I watched from the gallery as justice was finally served. Life sentences without parole for all three of them. No deals, No mercy, no escape. Jessica gripped my hand as they led our parents away. What happens now? Now? I showed her the advance copy of tomorrow's newspaper. Now the whole story comes out. The headline read, "Deadly Deception: How a Murdered Woman's Hidden Evidence Exposed Decades of Crime." My byline sat underneath, along with Luca's. "They'll hate you for this," Jessica whispered. "They already do, but Catherine's story deserves to be told." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. "Kiara, how does it feel to bring down your own family?" "This was never about family," I replied, my voice steady. This was about truth. About justice for Catherine Mills, for Uncle Robert, for Cooper, and for every other victim of their crimes. "And what about the money?" another reporter called out. "The millions in stolen assets?" "All being returned to the victims' families," Avery answered, appearing beside me, "starting with Catherine's relatives." Back at Luca's office, we watched the news coverage spread. My story was being picked up by major networks, exposing corruption that reached into local government, law enforcement, and beyond. "Your first article's going viral," Luca said, scrolling through online reactions. "People are calling for investigations in other cities, looking for similar patterns." "They won't find them," a voice said from the doorway. Agent Rivera stepped in, looking satisfied. "Thompson's network is done. His associates are scrambling to make deals, exposing operations across the country." "And the evidence?" I asked. "Safe. Catherine's documents filled in the missing pieces. She'd be proud of what you've done." I touched the locket around my neck. Inside was a small photo of Catherine I'd found in her belongings. She was smiling, full of life and purpose, unaware of the fate awaiting her. "I have something for you," Jessica said quietly, pulling out an envelope. "I found it in Mom's private papers while packing up the house." Inside was a letter from Catherine, dated the day before her death. "Dear little one," it read. "I don't know if you'll be a boy or girl, but I want you to know I'm fighting for you. For a world where truth matters more than money, where justice can't be bought. If something happens to me, remember, the truth always finds its way to light." My hands trembled. She knew she was going to die. "She was braver than all of us," Jessica admitted. "I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough sooner." "You are now," I said. "That's what matters." A notification pinged on my laptop. My editor wanting to discuss my next investigation. Luca had offered me a permanent position on his team, using my experience to expose similar corruption elsewhere. "Ready to get back to work?" Avery asked, pulling up files on other suspicious business empires. I looked around the office. At Luca's wall of evidence. At Jessica learning to research properly. At Agent Rivera coordinating with other jurisdictions. At the photo of Catherine watching over it all. "Actually," I said, "I want to start something new. A foundation in Catherine's name, helping whistleblowers expose corporate crime, using my share of the recovered money to fund investigations." "Count me in," Jessica said immediately. "I've got a lot to make up for." "Us too," Avery and Luca agreed. I opened my laptop and began typing. Catherine Mills didn't die in vain. Her courage, her evidence, and her unborn child's letter sparked a movement. Today, we honor her legacy by continuing her fight. The words flowed easily now, telling stories that needed to be told. Not for revenge anymore, but for justice. For truth. For every Catherine out there facing down corruption with nothing but courage and conviction. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom's prison number. I deleted it without reading. Some family ties are made of blood. Others are forged in the fire of fighting for what's right. Looking at my new family, Jessica finding her strength, Avery sharing her wisdom, Luca teaching his skills, I finally understood what real loyalty meant. "To Catherine," I said, raising my coffee cup. "And to the truth." "To the truth?" they echoed. Outside, the sun set on one story and rose on another. There would always be more corruption to expose, more justice to pursue. But now we had something powerful on our side. the legacy of a woman who refused to let evil win, and the determination to make her sacrifice matter. The truth had finally set us all free.